What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to ICNV Driversedition. And today I know we're addressing the question that everybody wants to know: why did I buy a Range Rover considering all the vehicles I was looking at? And I think to truly answer that question, I'm gonna share with you how we got to this place and why I bought the Range Rover, and maybe you can understand why this is probably one of the best decisions I've actually made. Let's talk about it. Okay, so if you remember back in 2024, I say November of 2024 last year, I actually decided that I was going to move Zeus within the next 6 to 8 months. Well, that didn't happen, but what actually came about the conversation or the process is I started to look at other vehicles. Back then, I really wanted to get into an SUV, and what I wanted to step into next wasn't a realistic purchase, because my goal was to save money and take some of the money I saved and purchase a new vehicle. So if you remember back then, I was looking at the 2018 white Range Rover, and that vehicle made the most sense. Even to this day, if I would have actually purchased that vehicle, I think I would probably still own it today, and there would be no doubt in my mind that car would not leave my house, or at least I would pay it off, and that would be the second option for me to move around in. That car was $40,000. Back then, I was getting about, realistically, I think $1,500 worth of profit off the trade-in of Zeus. So putting that on the $40,000 car and dropping down 3 to 5 grand, overall, the monthly payment on that car would have been $734. The difference is the warranty option, because they came to me with an extended warranty to cover it for 4 years, I believe. It was either 3 or 4 years. It was like $42.95. And I just felt like I could do better. So I held off on the purchase of that vehicle to search warranty options. And I don't know if many people understand this, but you don't necessarily have to buy a warranty from the dealer that you're actually looking to get a car from. But you can actually contact the manufacturer like Land Rover and go see what options they have. You can even go to, I would say, general purpose stores. They may or they may not always all help you, but typically most Chevy stores, most Ford stores, most GMC stores, they will sell you a warranty for another vehicle that's not even their manufacturer brand. Not every location, but most locations will. So I actually shopped around, because this Range Rover was at a GMC dealership. At a Chevy store, same warranty they was offering me, but they was willing to sell it to me for $38.95. So I decided to get the warranty through them. So by the time I reached back out to actually try to purchase the vehicle from them and decide to purchase the warranty from another location, it was sold. So that really upsetted me, because it was everything I wanted in a Range Rover. But since that vehicle was sold, I started searching around. And when I started searching around to replace that car, I stumbled across what they call an Autobiography Range Rover. So the Autobiography Range Rover was actually a fully loaded Range Rover with way more options, way more toys, and an even superior sound system. So once I actually got inside that vehicle, I'm not going to lie to you, the Range Rovers I was looking at beforehand didn't even match up. I no longer could look at just a standard Range Rover. And I think it's funny, because even when I was looking to buy the white one, I had already made up my mind, although it had a really nice sound system, I was going to upgrade it and do something custom to it, just so I could have a custom Range Rover, which is something you rarely see. But now this Autobiography had caught my attention, I started chasing autobiographies. Many autobiographies for sale are not in the Chicagoland area. So I was finding them in Ohio, Atlanta, Texas, and so forth, and they just were not giving me good appraisal values for my Corvette. So I kind of figured I would have to hold on to it a little bit longer, but it never stopped me from looking. And then in the midst of looking for autobiographies, and I found one, but the dealership would not work with me, meaning every time they dropped the price of their truck, they wanted to drop the price of my car the same amount of money. So I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me, because if I reach out to, let's say, a dealer that's 3 miles away from you, they're offering me $2,000 more. But because you dropped the price of your truck $2,000, you're trying to now say my car is less than $2,000. So it didn't work out, but they had the truck I wanted. Since I couldn't buy that truck, I kept searching, and then what hit my radar practically blew my mind. And that was a SV autobiography. And as I did the research on the SV autobiography, what I learned about the SV autobiography is it has the same performance, or should I say the same engine as the Range Rover SVR. It's tuned a little different. You get 557 horsepower. Most people say 560. I think it's 565 brake horsepower for our foreign friends. And this car moves. But not only does it move, it also has all the options that the autobiography has, but it's more luxury defined, meaning you get an upgraded interior that you just don't get on the autobiography. You also get standard rear massaging seats, which is optional on the autobiography. So me being the person I am, this became the focus of all my Range Rover hunts. I pretty much bumped myself up from the initial $40,000 purchase I was looking to get all the way $70,000 or more. Most SV autobiographies were $70,000 or more. There were a few floating in the $60,000 range, and I found myself looking at them, and everybody was wondering, how did I end up at a $20,000 price increase? Because the goal was to originally move Zeus for a car as cheap as possible to stack money quickly and add another sports car to the channel. Well, that's still my goal today. But what ended up happening is the vehicle I ended up purchasing, I actually stumbled across back in late April, early May of this year. And the reason why I say stumble across it, it was there prior to that, but based off my price range searches, it never fell in. So when it finally price dropped into my search, it ultimately became, for me, in the month of May, the difference between this vehicle and another SV autobiography, and the biggest difference in them was the color and the interior. I truly desired a two-tone interior. So that made it really hard for me to just accept the all-black interior. Now, I almost decided to move forward on a purchase of this truck back in May, but ultimately what ended up happening was life ended up lifing. There was death in the family, and my focus shifted from that point in time. So I ended up putting it on the back burner. But in the midst of that, when I started back looking, I ended up looking at all the other cars we discussed, and I saw a nice Mercedes AMG GTC that was in the same price range of what I was looking to acquire with a truck. So I started looking at sports cars, because I'm like, I never even thought about the fact that I raised myself from 40 grand, what potential sports cars I could end up in. So as I started shopping sports cars, I slowly bumped that price up to $80,000 because of what I could get for the money. And at the end of the day, as most of our discussions started to revolve around, I was looking for something around $85,000, and I found a lot of options. Many of these options were viable. I actually could purchase the Aston Martin DB11 V12. That deal was done. But what really resonated with me was I was kind of skeptical about aftermarket upgrading the sound system on that Aston Martin. I really didn't want to mess with the panels, the doors, and all this stuff, because that's one thing about the Aston Martin is it can easily drift into a whole nother situation based off the finishing, because the leather interior does have a tendency to bubble, and I don't want to mess with it to possibly trigger any of these flaws to show up. So that's what kind of took place with that. But at the end of the day, just being fully transparent, I got a great deal on a Mercedes AMG GTC. But the problem with the GTC was every option on it was cosmetic, meaning that they paid extra for all the carbon fiber inside and out, which actually made the car very appealing. But as far as any of the luxury features to go with the vehicle, there was no upgraded quilted seats, there was no upgraded sound system, there was no two-tone interior. So ultimately, I know myself, I would have got the car and enjoyed the performance up front. But honestly, after having it for a few months, the fact that I didn't have any of the luxury stuff inside the car, like cool seats and things of that nature, it would have really became an issue for me with ownership of this car. So I declined on it. And while I was sitting there looking at that aspect and trying to find more vehicles to possibly purchase in this scenario, I stumbled back into the sports SUV, the performance SUV range. And what ended up happening is the same two cars I walked away from in May and started increasing my purchase price over the course of the summer looking at sports cars were now discounted $4 to $5 grand less. So what's funny is I actually went out and took a look at this vehicle back in August. And what's even more funnier about this is when I looked at this vehicle in August, we were literally $1,000 away. I told the dealer, for where I want to spend and where I want to try to accomplish, we're about $4,000 away. I'll agree to pay an extra $2,500 if you knock off $1,000. Well, they told me it couldn't be done. There's no way we're dropping this price. You know what you're looking at, yada, 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 and so forth and so forth. I didn't buy that car. I was supposed to go see this car in person, but I never made it. And I think that was a significant problem, because if I would have went and saw it in person then, I might have just purchased the car then. But I didn't. And lo and behold, I started looking back at AMG GTCs, because honestly, that car started to really take over because finding the Aston Martin was very hard. Or should I say, as they came in, they just started selling so quick, it was becoming discouraging trying to track down one. So ultimately what ended up happening is, when I finally came back to looking at these two cars again, which was the beginning of October, late September, that vehicle that they told me they could not move $1,000 in their selling price, 5 weeks later was now being offered at a $4,000 discount in the price. What upsets me is that if the salesman would have called me and said, hey, we dropped the price, I would have went and purchased that vehicle. If the car sales manager, before they even dropped the price, would have reached out and said, you know what, let's go ahead and do that deal, I would have bought the car for $3,000 more than what they were offering it for sale. But by the time I saw it advertised for the $4,000 less, it was already on the market 3 weeks prior. I reached out to purchase it, and by the time I got my bank to approve it and send the information over to say they wanted to buy it, we were told the car already had a deal worked out on it and it was being sold, and I could no longer purchase it. So then I turned around and looked at this vehicle, which had also dropped $4,000 in pricing, and inquired about purchasing it. What ended up playing out is the dealership that had this vehicle actually quoted me an additional $2,000 on my trade appraisal, which made this car even more appealing. But honestly, because the pictures did no justice for the vehicle, I still kept shopping around, and I didn't quite rush to make my bank go ahead and purchase the vehicle. And ultimately, because I didn't respond back significantly quick enough, or with any like real true desire to buy the car, they dropped the price another $2,000. And once the price dropped another $2,000, and I calculated everything out, my mind got to turning. They were offering me the most for my trade, other than a few cars that were higher priced than it. When I did the numbers at the new price range, my mind got to twirling. So I was like, you know what? Let's see how it really plays out. I went on Carvana and a couple of other car sites that say they will cut you a check and come pick up your vehicle. The price I was getting this car for with no warranty. If the car broke down, or if I purchased it and turned right back around and sold it to Carvana, I could still walk away with $5 to $6 grand in my pocket. So my thought process was, I will buy this car, I will make as much content as I can make on it within a 1 month window. And if it starts giving me any issues, or I start to feel concerned about this being a bad purchase, I will call Carvana. I will call any one of these locations or sites that said they will cut me a check for the car. I will let them come get it. I will take my money and sit idle and just continue dropping videos until possibly, let's just say, March to the May timeline of next year, and buy something else. That was my thought process. So that's how I end up making this purchase. And I say it ended up being the best purchase for me because the amount of money or equity I have in this car off the initial purchase, even when I took it into the Range Rover dealership to have some work done to it, if I was willing to trade it in, they were still giving me, and I know I wasn't getting a good appraisal, but they were offering me $5,000 worth of equity for this vehicle. Having ownership in a car today that I can truthfully still shop around and find something else if I don't like the ownership experience, that's a plus for me. And all of this came from owning the Corvette that everybody kept saying was depreciating in value, a bad waste, and so forth. And I'm in this car today, having fun with it, for $800 less a month than I was paying on my Corvette. Let that sink in. And not only the $800 less I was paying a month on my Corvette, I still have equity already built into the car. So my goal, as I said before, is to enjoy this car for 1 year, possibly 18 months, and see what's out there. And the reason why this became the best decision for me, and I'll explain it to you, when I was looking at the Mercedes AMG GTC, what really stood out to me was I liked the car, I liked the performance. But what I did not like was the fact that it was the older version and the dated technology falling into the price range I wanted to purchase the vehicle at. So because of that, I don't want to own the old dashboard, old technology version of the Mercedes AMG GTC. I truly desire to own the 2020 and newer version of the AMG GTC. And so my thought process is that if I sit in this Range Rover, continue to pay on it, hopefully within the next 18 months, at worst case scenario, and I said worst case scenario, a 2020 to 2022 Mercedes AMG GTC falls into the price range I was initially looking to spend the money on, because at this point in time, those cars are anywhere between $15,000 to $20,000 more than what I was willing to spend on an AMG GTC. But hopefully one of those cars falls into the price range I'm looking to purchase a vehicle at today, and I will move on one of those cars, if not something else. But like I said before, just being fully transparent, the C8 E-Ray and the C8 Z06, they have plummeted so hard in value that I don't discount the ownership because of the value of the car. But what I look at is, I didn't want to buy a Z06 or a C8 E-Ray today and the value is not there for the car, meaning as soon as I take ownership, it drops another 5 to 10 grand. That's what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to take that type of hit. So to me, even to look at purchasing a C8 Z06 or a C8 E-Ray, I need to let this car sit on the market for another year. And if you saw already in the video I released about the Corvette prices and values and so forth, you will understand there are still brand new 2024 C8 Z06s out there that haven't sold. But the discount is not enticing enough to make you purchase it. There are E-Rays out there from 2024 that haven't sold. And we're at the end of 2025. So that's why it's hard for me to commit to one of those purchases, because these cars are already from MSRP being discounted 10 to 15 grand. You see them on the used market 20 to 25 grand under MSRP, and you have to understand the dealerships are still buying them less than that because nobody's selling the car without making some form of profit. And that's why I find it hard, because as I'm sitting at the auction and I'm seeing some of these Z06s going through the auction that once had $130,000 MSRP, strolled through the auction for 95 grand, but they're asking 105, 107, I just can't buy it. So I'm going to enjoy this SV Autobiography today. Take a look at the marketplace again next year around this time, and I'll make a decision to bring back another high performance car to this channel. It may happen sooner, but I doubt it happens later. So that's why I bought the Range Rover. I bought the Range Rover, as I tell everybody, and I told my wife to remind me, that to trust the process. There is a process, there is a method, there is a reason why I made this purchase. This is a beneficial purchase. And just like every car I've pretty much owned in the past, I bought a car where I should have a good equity standpoint when I look to get out the car. And that's all anybody really wants, is to have equity from one vehicle to carry over to the next, that helps make the purchase of the next vehicle a lot easier and a lot less stressful. That's my thoughts. That's why I made this decision. So let me know in the comments below if you think I made a good decision, if I made a bad decision, if it would have been a decision that you made, or do you understand the whole concept behind stepping into a vehicle with equity and creating more equity for the next purchase. Let me know what your thoughts are. ICNV Driversedition. Go ahead, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Join the ICNV Driversedition community. We are an interactive community, means if you hit me up in my social media platforms or in the comments below, I'll do my best to respond. And if the topic you bring up is interesting enough, I may even shoot a video on it. But don't forget, we're also a community of car enthusiasts that love to drive cars to make you turn your head, that aren't your everyday people movers. If you're one of those individuals, go ahead, lock into the channel and enjoy the content we have coming your way, because we have so much more coming that you don't want to miss out. Remember, we were all made in His image, given dominion over the world, which means we weren't just meant to be. So chase your dreams, build your visions, never ever give up, and embrace your own identity. It is okay to be unique. He's not done with you, and He's definitely not done with me. We will all give you unique gifts to help us become the best version of us that we can possibly be. So step into your calling and be the blessing to the world that you were meant to be. Just remember to stay humble, stay focused, and stay blessed. And I'll see you in these streets. Peace.